is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Light Warriors Unleashed podcast, episode 98. And in the actual podcast, I actually apologize for us being a week late and launching the next episode, and I explain it all in there. So for those of you guys that are avid listeners, I give you an apology formally in there, but we're back in this new episode. And today I'm talking about deeper rooted energy in your mission and deeper understanding as to why you're here on earth and what this means for us as we move through our next phases of growth, and how we can look at different aspects of the past to reference the movement forward. And I drop into some energy of what's happening in the collective. I talk through some of the dynamics of what we're moving through as humans right now in this perspective. And it's just a plethora of beautifulness as we maneuver through. So I'm excited to share with you guys episode 98 of the Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. All right, guys. The first thing I want to do is actually apologize that we didn't have an episode launch last week. So some of you guys are maybe new to my world. Maybe you're just finding this podcast for the first time. Some of you have been listening avidly to the podcast, but I missed dropping the episode last week because I was like super sick, and I was supposed to record it on Thursday night, and I got back from the gym and something in me was like, there's no way we're going to be able to step into the space to actually record this tonight. I was exhausted. And then it ended up in the middle of the night. I ended up getting super sick. And then I was like KO'd all weekend. And then I tried, quote unquote, to get the podcast out Monday and Tuesday, and it just didn't land. And then I just dropped into the energy of surrendering and said, fuck it. We're not going to do an episode for last week. We're just going to restart this week and get into flow. So here we are, episode 98. And I'm jazzed about this conversation because the conversation that I want to speak into today came through while watching A League of Their Own, the movie. Okay, now a couple things I just want to note in connection with this movie. There's a lot of elitists in this movie that are part of the whole mechanism of the cabal energy, and I don't subscribe to that. Okay, so I just want to make sure I state that out loud. I understand. I also vowed to never again watch any other Tom Hanks movies in my lifetime. And that movie, though, I love and adore. A couple reasons why. One, I actually was incarnated at that time and played in that league. Oof, my body's going into goosebumps. So if you don't know the movie, it's called A League of Their Own. And it's about when the men went to war, the women went to play Major League Baseball. And they played 4 teams in the space. And this is actually a true story. This actually happened. They're in the I don't even know what it's called, the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame. And there were some key players in the stories about their life through this transition of baseball and playing at least in the first year of baseball. And yeah, it's kind of cool. One of my lives incarnated was in this space. And I was laying down on the couch watching this movie. And there came a point in the movie where this African-American woman picked up the ball and threw it back into the stadium, let's call it. And she had a wicked arm. And at that time, obviously, we'll call it Black women weren't allowed to actually play in the league. They weren't allowed to do a lot of things in the space of that adventure, let's say, in life. And as I sat there watching this happen, I was reminded of a few things that I think are important for us to note in the span of the work we're doing on Earth right now, and in the span of the energy that we're working through in this Earth experience. And that is the recognition of our mission and pathway. So if we go back in time and actually really think about people on the Earth plane doing things that were not normal and outside of a perspective of normal to shift energy in humanity. So we can look at different dynamics of people speaking their voice, different dynamics of people stepping in, different dynamics of people creating in the space of what they were creating. And because of them, they created an imprint in the world for us to then come in another incarnated level to then layer that perspective and layer that learning and layer that trail, right? So if we take a look at this woman who wasn't allowed to play in the league, who probably qualified to play in the league, she was probably better than a lot of the players that were in the league, but couldn't try out because of her race and because of the color of her skin, which she chose to incarnate in to come up against a certain platform. She was brought into the Earth experience for a certain mission and reason to step into this space. I don't know what happened to this woman. I don't know what the woman was in this world, in this lifetime, or who she actually was. But in the middle of the movie, when this played out, and I've watched this movie probably hundreds of times. I love this movie, and I know why, because I played in the league. So when I watch this movie and I go back into the movie, I am in that lifetime again. I can feel the energy. I can feel like they made the women wear skirts to play ball, right? Because it was all about selling tickets. It was all about stepping into a certain vibration to bring people in to make money while the men were out at war, right? And the league ended up continuing past the war, and they stayed, I think it was like 12 years, I think, that they stayed playing in that landscape and space of time, which I think is super cool and dynamic, right, inside of this thing that we're actually looking at. But in the scope of this, why I bring this up today, and it could have been for multiple reasons that you jumped into this podcast and you were like, that's what I needed, like already in the scope of what I've already said. But why I came through today was I'm reminded of us in our mission here on Earth, and us recognizing the fact that we're not just here for our own selves, that we are here in a layering effect to create an imprint in the universal field. And every single person that is on Earth right now has a mission that's tied to someone else's mission, that's tied to a mission 20 years down the road, that's tied to a mission 100 years down the road. And if we look back on these people that created an imprint, these people that stepped up and spoke out against things, these people that refused to diminish their light, these people that were like in the space of I'm do or die. You know, we can look at the context of, like, let's say Gladiator, the movie, or what was that movie with Mel Gibson in it? And it was like they went to war on the battlefield for Ireland or Scotland. I think that's what it was. It's like a really Braveheart, a really well-known movie, right? It's like these people stepped up into their mission to uphold this vibration. And it brought in, with this woman throwing the ball, this whole entire mechanism. It wasn't about her stepping up onto the field, because it didn't have a say in the movie. This wasn't about a woman, a Black woman playing in the league. That's not what it was about, but it opened up this pathway for me to see this in a different light, to be like, holy shit, like I know this, but now I'm knowing this, right? And now I'm bringing it to you to feel in your field that your light imprint, sometimes we're thinking so small, right? We're so fucking stuck in our excuses. We're so stuck in the things that are happening in our world. We're so stuck under this guise of things that we're like, we're thinking that it's just about us, and we're not, but we are. Because we're not making the moves, we're not making the decisions, we're letting fear cloud our judgment, we're not stepping into the space because we're thinking just about us instead of the actual landscape in which we play on, right? Braveheart and Gladiator weren't about that just moment of time. They were about a revolution. They were about stepping in to make change. They were about stepping in to literally dismantle certain aspects of life. Think about Anne Frank, right? In the story of that, right? Inside of the space. Think about Martin Luther King. Think about these people that stepped out of their comfort zones because the light was calling them forward. The truth that moved through them was calling them out to step into the space to serve, to be in this light. And some of you are like, whoa, I don't want to be Martin Luther King, and I don't want to step. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you shining your fucking light in your truth. But most of humanity right now are diminished because we're scared of what people are going to think. We're fucking shit scared about really stepping into the space. You know, we're not having the courage and the grit to actually take action because it's hard. I get it. All healing's hard. Our trauma's fucking hard. All the things we need to move through are hard, but it's necessary. We chose this pathway for a reason. We chose it. And it's not just about you or me. It's about what does the imprint that I've chosen, this puzzle piece that I've chosen in this life, mean for the next phase of the evolution or the mission on Earth? Everybody has a key. And you may be like, well, Colleen, like I'm never going to run a business and I'm not going to be out there writing a book or promoting things into the world and making change in the world. Your light is the change. You moving yourself into joy and love is the change. So I've spoken into this, and I don't even know if it's been on podcast, but like, cause I teach a lot, guys. And for those of you guys newer to my world, like I have masterclasses and circles, and I do live trainings. I have a free Facebook group, which the link is in the show notes if you want to join. It's called the Spiritual Warriors. And I go live every Monday in there and talk about something that's going on in the field. It's literally like, sometimes I'll promote free offers in it, but it's literally like a clean group. If you guys want to join on Facebook into that group, but I'm teaching all the time. So I'm like, I don't know where I spoke this into the field, but I talk about the scale of consciousness and power versus force and Dr. David Hawkins's scale of consciousness, right? And if you actually read Power versus Force, if you've ever got connected to that book, you know that it's not just about like a single person doing a single thing. It's that light vibration, that calibration, where you are on the scale that makes massive impact. And the higher we move up in the scale, meaning the more we get through our shit, the more we move up into truth, the more we move up into logic, the more we move up into love and we hold the vibration of love. And then the more we move up into joy and hold the vibration of joy, the more people we impact. One person vibrating in joy like connects, I think, into like 1 million people. That's the vibration that moves through the field of that person that lives in joy. Some of you have heard me say before, the more fun I have, the more money I make. Because when I'm in fun and joy and vibrancy in that space, I expand energy into the world, and then I'm in expansion and energy. But until we step into this and until we really dive in and have the guts to say no and have the guts to dismantle and have the guts to start the business and have the guts to speak our truth, we will never be able to vibrate in the vibration and calibration that's been called through us to just be a human on this earth. Never mind the impact of some of us that are making like tidal waves in the world. That has nothing to do with this. There's a whole other mechanism of that. I'm talking about you as a human being on this earth. Never mind the mission at hand. I'm talking about your light. And if I really bring it back into this movie, so I love this movie, even though there's like probably all the people for sure, Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, Tom Hanks, Gina Davis too, which is actually kind of sad. Like all those people have bought into the elitist mechanism and are bought by Hollywood, right? And I don't condone their actions whatsoever at all, but I love the movie because I had a past life in the movie. You know, like it's actually kind of really fucking fun. But when I look back on this, and even the imprint of what this league brought to humanity, it's like in places of war where our men were out fighting and they were out making waves. And that's a whole other thing, is war and the creation of this war and all the stuff. And, you know, literally I can probably drop into the space to confidently say that the whole Nazi mechanism was a planned event. And that is actually sad to think that transpired in the Earth experience and through this endeavor. But we've been playing against the shadow for a long time. But most of humanity haven't been awakened to be able to fight it. Instead, we're fighting it in 3D and low vibration energy like wars, instead of fighting it in the light, right? And this is where we're at. And this is why the revolution of sovereignty is so important in the field right now, of us becoming sovereign beings, taking our light back, stepping in through our light, being in the space of our light, because of the fact that we're up against this war in the world. And the war isn't on the earth plane, even though it's happening on the earth plane. It's in the energetics of everything. And a fully embodied person shining in their light, in their truth, is now a warrior of light that's accelerating light into the world and helping others accelerate light. Whether you ever create content, whether you ever step into business, it doesn't matter. It's your vibrational alignment. And I look at this and I go, we're setting the tone, guys. And some of you are more driven to help others than you are driven to help yourself. This is a thing, and it's been proven, and they have like studies and shit on this all the time. It's like people will do more for other people than they do for their own selves. So if you see your life that way, and that is true for you, think about it this way. You have a puzzle piece that is a layer for someone else's layer. And they can't do their work until you do yours. So you know what is showing up in your field. You know where you're being called for. You know what this means for you. You know, because we have intuition. If you're listening to this podcast whatsoever at all, you are tapped in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're in denial about your tapped in, whether you're avoiding your tapped in, whether you're, misinterpreting your tapped in because of the fact that you really don't want to own it because you're scared as fuck to own this. It doesn't matter what that means in the field of things. You know the decisions coming through. You know what's needed to happen. So I'm calling it forward today for you to feel this, that layer. And maybe it's going to take some work, and maybe you're going to have to do some healing, and maybe you're going to have to release some things, and maybe you're going to have to dive into some shit that you don't want to dive into. But this is the time. We are here right now. No matter when you listen to this podcast, if you listen to it the day that it launches or the week it launches, it doesn't matter, or 5 years down the road you find this. This is the time right here for you right now. This is it. And we breathe into this knowing that that is truth, because you're going to feel it in your body. You're going to be like, fuck, Colleen, I can't believe you're smacking me across the face again. Yeah, I am. Because I smack myself across the face all the time. Because we're living in mediocrity, forgetting about the fact that we are spiritual beings in this beautiful experience on earth, connected to divine coding that can get us into any kind of alignment we desire. We can live any life we desire on earth if we do the work, we believe it can happen, and we calibrate to the energy of what that desire is. That's the job. It's not the 9 to 5s. It's not stepping in to do more work. It's not the doing. It's this right here. And it's like, if we really dive into this and we play all in, like I've been talking about for years, but it's like all in. I mean, you wake up every day and you are with yourself every day and you're like, boom, how do I keep stepping into this light? Boom. How do I keep stepping into this light? Boom. How do I keep stepping into this light? And you are active in that. You're going to watch your whole entire fucking life change. And the things that you really want, the relationships you really want, the love and connection you really want, the desired outcomes of your lifestyle that you really want, the choices that you really want are going to be yours. But we got to do this work and stop fucking hiding from it and stop pretending and stop pushing it off. It's time. It's time. And so, I love watching movies, and my guides and my higher self talk to me through movies a lot of the time, because I'm available for that. Like Harry Potter has so many fucking messages for me. Lord of the Rings, Divergent. I have so many movies that I like rewatch in the space of things because I can see through the illusions of the movies, and I've dismantled all the distortion around it and all the shit that they've done on the movies. Like a lot of the newer movies I can't watch, except for The Idea of You, which I've kind of watched maybe 4 times already. Just putting that out there. And I'm not a big fan of Anne Hathaway because obviously she's involved in that energy too. And I'm sure Nicholas, who's the lead, is as well, which is sad for me because he's pretty hot, but he's youngin'. He's a youngin'. But I tend to get drawn to movies that have underlying messages that most of humanity never see because they're not awakened enough to be able to look at it from a different viewpoint. But when we make a decision to choose to keep doing the work and to keep opening ourselves up and to keep being present and to keep trusting in the universal flow, everything opens up and we start to see life differently and we start to see the people in our world differently. And good, like there's no good or bad, but sometimes we have these people on pedestals that we don't need to have on pedestals, that we've been watching and wanting and desiring that life when that whole life is an illusion. We drop back into the heart, people. And that's where we lead from every day of the week, right through the heart. And if you keep doing that and you keep showing up there and you keep moving that forward, life will change. Life will change. And it's time for us to pick that up and for us to feel that peace and for us to move that through and for us to be in this. Because literally, why else would we want to be here? If you really think about this, we have the opportunity as humans on this experience to really change how we live our lives. But we've got to do the work to change. We've got to have the conversations. We've got to create the boundaries. We've got to make the moves, all the things. So I wanted to drop that in your field today about a league of their own and about how that opened up this whole perspective of this pathway for us, for our understanding. Because remember, all the lights matter, every single one. One light in a room of darkness lights up the dark. One light. And I want you to feel that in your field today as you go about your day. One light. And thank you guys for being here and for listening and for having patience with my crazy life and for just being on this roller coaster with me, because I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm really grateful that you take the time to listen, that you're here right now, that we're together in this space of time. And I love you guys. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.